All right, here we are with the final of my website development course, and definitely not the biggest website that I've worked on, just in terms of the content across the pages, but the biggest I did at the time, and especially with quite the time crunch. So, because you may think, oh, all this stuff is a little bit excessive, but no, like based on the assignment, this was kind of actually the minimum. So I actually probably would have done more, but time, like it was the time crunch that was really killing me. So I'll probably go over not everything, but the different specific series pages are pretty similar, and then the genre pages are similar, and then obviously the index and the styles are different. So I guess one thing to mention right away is that everything on here has have the same navigation bar. So what I would do nowadays is break that up into a component and then add it in using JavaScript, which uh, I guess the only technical downside is that doing it that way, if you don't have JavaScript enabled or on a much older device, then that's part of the website that won't load in completely. But JavaScript is so common and so widely accepted that I really don't think that's much of an issue. And then also, the benefits of that are basically, it's basically object-oriented HTML. Because as is, say, I want to make a change. Let's just say I want it to be, instead of types of books, I just want it to be books. I have to change that across every page that has this navigation bar, but having it as a component, which I do later on, like that was something we were never taught, which really surprised me. But that's just something that I picked up on my own. So I did doing that later on, but just not really in any of the assignments. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think just from what I remember, the nested navigation bar was a requirement as well. It's pretty cool, but it was kind of a pain to get working properly. Uh, then just a section. Um, and also I forget which video I mentioned it in, but I did mention how you're kind of not supposed to have. In this case, it's fine, but you're not supposed to say have an H1, then an H3, then back up to an H2. But that's just something that's basically a rule that I regularly break. Because just think about it, it makes your sections much clearer. Say you have multiple sections with smaller sections in them, it just makes more sense. I don't really know how, because it's a stylistic rule, not a requirement for this to work. So I don't even know how enforced that is, but it's something that, you know, just as an example, if I was teaching, I would not enforce at all. Basically, I'd just bring it up. Oh, and then skipping. Then here's like a genre page. See, like it has this all the same. So like I mentioned with the sections, and also like my previous ones, the only changes I've had made to this are just some readability changes, nothing that, and the basically readability, copyright, and spelling mistakes, but nothing that changes the functionality of the website. And then also something uh, that is worth mentioning is that I have kind of you'll see it when I show the website proper, but I have like an alternating color scheme. So I think now, just so I don't have a bunch of like footer A2s, I probably would just do separate CSS files for those. Um, is, or more properly, I would have one CSS file shared between them, and then one each for the different colors, so I don't have those twos. Just not a big fan of that. And if I can find, I don't have it open. Oh, I do have it open. Then I think maybe table was a requirement too, but I could easily see myself doing that. Just big comment, because there's a lot of similar stuff across these pages, so I just like, all right, here's what I did, and just put it in a big comment up there, which you don't want comments that big. And I guess I'll show the styles as well. Styles is pretty lengthy as well, so having that split up there as well would be a pretty good idea. Uh, but still, it's kind of, I guess, hard to talk about things that specific parts about the markup and the or hypertext markup language. Yeah, the markup. I don't know why every time I'm like, oh, is that right? It is right. Oh, and I guess, but yeah, it's kind of hard to just talk about stuff specific about the code rather than design choices, I suppose. And then here's another thing worth mentioning that I have, you'll see it, but this was before JavaScript, so I was basically, it's kind of hard to do. Uh, this isn't an advanced animation, but still, I'd say even on this level, it's kind of hard to do an animation well or properly or whatever with just CSS, but I did manage. But obviously now I would do JavaScript just to make it way easier. But as I mentioned before, this website not using any JavaScript does have its benefits, however slight. And then, yeah, not much else to talk about. I'm just scrolling through. Just media queries were definitely a requirement. See, there's a bunch of very, I guess, yeah, very ugly, uh, tag and class trees, I guess is how I'd describe it, just for the navigation bar and for on different screens. But this is just for the, you know, you only want it to turn to a hamburger menu once, for example, where when you have a grid, you want it to get progressively smaller. But with all that all said, I'll show it. So it's also, I guess, I like the previous assignment more just because I had more freedom. I still had a lot of freedom with this, but especially when it comes to website design, I feel like freedom is a very important thing. And here's the kind of a carousel thing, and here's what I mean, where it doesn't look bad, but I think because of how I designed it, I actually couldn't make it too much smaller and have it work properly. So that's a one issue with doing it this way, and the other is that you could make it easily as good with JavaScript, and then have there you saw the bunch of different lefts minus 100%. It would be much simpler in JavaScript. And if I remember correctly, I didn't see it when I was looking through the code. I think these yeah, it goes off to the page. So there, that's graphic novels. And here's the table. Also, I kind of just like randomly generated a color scheme. So that's why it's a kind of weird. And remembering now, the color scheme was actually a pretty important part of like the requirements. I don't really get that. I feel like, if you're designing a website, you probably either are, you're gonna make it look good. You're gonna try to make it look good, especially at this point. So we could have the color scheme be whatever we want, but there had to be like four color palette basically. So in my opinion, it's just like we're at the point where we're gonna try to make it look good, so the number of colors doesn't really matter. And then here's like the grid thing. Well, one of the grid things basically just other books from the series, and then I mentioned this in the last one where now I would have it so you could hover and on the shows on hover for the links. And see, there's kind of a similar design tropes with the last one as well, because I did like parts of how that looked. So I won't show every single page probably, but I'll show a few. So see here, it's just so this is a one big background element, and this is just right justified on it with see the little rounded edges. And I like how that turned out. It's kind of a very appealing kind of way to do it, especially with images of the size. Now it's a book cover, so and there's a lot of text, so it fills up this side, and the text can do the rest of the filling up. Than other books from the series. And then see here, it's kind of inverted. If I go back, or Actually, no, I'll go to a different page. Yeah, I basically make them switch. So then the next one is the Chainsaw Man style. So that's why I had two of each because it was literally the same thing, just with a different color used and different justification. You see, it's right justified now, and yeah, it takes you to the Amazon page, which, funnily enough, I actually think all of these links still work, which is I have a ton of them on here. So that's just pretty neat. And then I just wanted to do the inverted colors thing just to so all the pages didn't look the same, but also one kept the same style and two kept within the color palette, which I suppose making us use a four color palette made me be that creative with the justification. But honestly, I probably wouldn't have used too many more colors. But so because of that, I think I actually would have still probably come up with this idea. It was kind of down to the time constraint where I didn't really have too much time to make all the pages look different. So this it was like doing this and then having it be on a different side isn't really enough. So then I changed the colors. And then also, so those are the specific book pages. So I just showed two of those, and then I'll kind of show off the genre pages since you basically seen what the book pages have to offer. And then see here, it's kind of thematic where this is kind of a smaller version of, it's a smaller version of what the main page is with, the difference being no buttons and no text, no header text in the actual element here, but this is representative of what would be actually inside of it. And then here are other books on the page. And then if I can't remember, I think I did. Yeah, so when you go to a different genre, it starts off on the other colors. So what I think I did is I had an order for how I did them. I probably did them in the order that they're on here, and then I just like alternated to see. And this is the only one that doesn't have an extra element because of how I did it. It doesn't really matter. It does look kind of weird, but there's no real way. I guess I could have these be more in the center, but I think I prefer having it be like the empty gap versus having these be aligned in the middle. But that's just a personal preference, I guess. And I guess I'll go check out Amulet just so it'll be different color palette. And then yeah, so this was a honestly, aside from the time crunch, this was a pretty fun one to make. I wasn't extremely passionate about it. I was more so passionate about the topic that because we had a few limitations other than time when it came to things that had to be on the website. But it was, I think you can tell that I still had fun making it, and I definitely did like a try. I assume that's obvious, but I guess it's nice to just say, yeah, I did try. And you know, I guess not so much a design trope, just a personal preference, is that you'll see this font a lot on my websites. I can't remember if this one's MSP Gothic or MSP Gothic regular, but it's just, I don't know how many people have them, but it's one of my favorite fonts. Not widely used too much. It's not one of the defaults you'll find on your computer, so it's just one of my favorites to use. And because of that, uh, depending on who's looking at this, it'll probably not appear depending on if it's MS Gothic or MSP Gothic regular, you know. But that's neither here nor there. And I think it's about time that I end this one. See you next time.